Hello, women and girls around the world. Get ready for a fresh new approach to daytime radio that's just right for you. Tell your girlfriends, tell your mothers, tell your sisters and your daughters to join the conversation. It's entertaining, informative, progressive, and solution-oriented. It's The Chloe Show with Chloe Taylor Brown and Jay Sherrill. It's Right Now Radio, and we are mentoring women and girls around the world. Hello there, women and girls around the world, and all the marvelous men who are joining with us today. We have a wonderful show ahead of us today for you. I am Chloe Taylor Brown. You're listening to The Chloe Show. And as far as today's conversation, I am very, very, very excited to introduce you to a man who works with men, the integrity of men, and about relationships. And we are going to bring him on right now. Help me to welcome Mr. Glenn Barker, who is the Executive Director of Mankind Project Chicago. Hello, Glenn.
Hello, Chloe. Hello. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
You are so very welcome, and I want to tell you right off the bat, I love your voice. It is made for radio, and I hope you have a radio show.
Perhaps after today.
Say hello to Jay Sherrill, my co-host and favorite daughter.
Hello, how are you?
Very good, again, and thank you. I know you've been co-hosting and helping launch the show. I've been tracking your progress and the great service and work you've been doing here. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks. I'm really excited to be doing it. It's a new endeavor, and it's just going so nicely.
It is.
Well, you know, I was reading an article that was written just on March 4th, and it was an article about the United Nations Women's Rights Group looking for men's support. And we understand as leaders and also as women who work with women to elevate ourselves that we have to also be able to have a conversation about men. And just as the United Nations knows that it is important and vital to the expansion of women, we need men. And I am so happy and thankful that you agreed to come on today and share the work that you're doing with men and how this impacts and affects the lives of women and also our intergenerational relationships. So thank you so very much for the work that you're doing, and thank you for being here. And I would like for you to, first of all, just share what it is that you do.
And thank you for that. The importance of us, that we're all in it together, that you are stressing and continue to stress, is I think, the most constructive thinking of the day. And the Mankind Project for 30 years now was born out of the women's movement. There was 3 men, one of which was a feminist psychologist, social worker that was a genius who sat in a lot of the early women's movements meetings saying, and where are the men? The women are connecting, they're supporting each other, they're intergenerational. Right, and they're standing with each other, for each other, supporting each other, and it hit this man like a ton of bricks. Where are
the men supporting them?
Right, where are the men supporting the women, and where are the men supporting the men? It's almost a total absence of male, not only participation or anything near this in a support network for men and their own personal development. In some ways, men are so disenfranchised from their families, from intergenerational connection, from mentoring, from true good male role models, that this, as we know, 20 years later, has had quite an effect on our world.
Right.
So hasn't it?
The corporation prison system.
Right, we can get into all that, all the whys and all the powers that have affected that, but nevertheless, I think if we can get an agreement to say that it's true, there's been a disenfranchisement of men from each other, from men from families, society, and it's affecting all of us. It's affecting all of us. So 30 years ago, this man teamed up with a couple other men and created this very risky weekend for men to try to reclaim some sacred part of their masculine that was aggressive but not destructive. To be assertive, right, but not be a bully. To be, what is it a new man shows up with in this world? Because we're not hunting anymore. You don't go out to kill. We go out to conquer ourselves, our own dragons, our own demons, to take on challenges of our society, to take on the challenges of our own shadow about what cripples us to show up present, powerful, loving, contributing to our partners, to our families, to our community. What's in the way, men? What's going on? So we created this weekend.
What do you think has led to the way that men have kind of seen it as okay to slack off a little bit in their responsibilities towards women and their families across the board? What do you think has been a cause of that? Maybe not having a right male role model, a female role model, or both, or other things? Or are there more things that you've learned that...
Oh, absolutely. It's not as simple as how men are slacking off. We're talking about an effect of a symptom that has a cause, right? Mm-hmm. And so if we'll keep this in the arena, say intergenerational, the men of our time do not have intergenerational mentoring, real stewardship of a modeling of a mature masculine. Right. It's puarchy, it's called, which is the rule of boys.
What is it called again, Glenn?
It's called puarchy. It's an actual name, which is the Lord of the Flies, the ruling of boys.
Oh, wow. That was one of the first books that I read in high school that I was really into. I was like, oh, my goodness, what is this?
Look at that book and look at the gangs. Look at that book. Look in your schools. Look at that book, and that is the rule of boys trying to initiate themselves into manhood with no mentoring.
And that does not work.
And it is worse than not working. It's destructive because what happens is these initiations are violent because they're trying to turn themselves into men, and it's not guided by older men, and it goes awry. This young warrior energy is an old African proverb that says, if we don't initiate the young men, they will burn down the village just to feel the heat. And it's true. Wow. And it's true.
Yeah, boys definitely, they need when they're not boys, well, boys who are, in the adolescence need a focus or a way to channel their new, testosterone.
Absolutely. If a young man doesn't walk through that,
latch onto to feel like this is what I need to do to practice to be a man, and some kids are just latching onto the wrong thing.
So if we're to address, say, what are some contributing factors? Now, there's no excuse truly for personal responsibility, yet we can look at some causation, right? At 12, 13 years old in the villages of the past, they would come and get the young boys, and they would drag them away from mom, and mom, sadly, played a part in the role. Oh, don't take my boy, knowing very well he's got to go.
Right.
Right? And yes, it was sad because you're going to lose your boy, but he'll come back a man contributing to the tribe. And it was time, and they knew it, and everybody played the part. Right? Now, those boys went out, and men, yes, some of it was rough. If you had to kill a boar, it was because that's the representation of your father, of authority. And once you conquer that in a good way, you are your own man. You can take your place with the other men with all the rights and the responsibilities of a leader in your community.
The title, the boastfulness of it.
That's right. And it wasn't just a label with a certificate. There was rights and responsibilities. And this was guided intergenerationally.
When do you think this happened? When did you see the absence of this? Or your founder... When did he see the absence of this transference of power from intergenerational relationships from older man to younger man?
It started to deteriorate. There's been great studies on that. There's some wonderful men that have tracked this through time. And it's the Industrial Revolution, when the father was taken out of the home. When the father was taken out of the home. And, of course, during those terrible years of slavery when families were broken up intentionally to deteriorate the inner family so there could be power structures put in to replace that. These moves were horrific psychically, and it's affecting us today.
The Industrial Revolution changed the way everyone had to parent also, because everyone had to get jobs and work, and it was busy and hustling, and they had to create completely new customs and go do away with what was working for so many years.
Yeah, there was no tribe raising our children anymore. There was a babysitter. And now with so many mothers that are out working to support families, I expect in our next 10 years we'll see the effect of that on our families as well. If we're not already feeling it, if you don't already see it. And we may not feel it at the time as a child, but it shows up later in our relationships. It shows up later in our ability or inability to cope with authority, to cope with change in our life, to understand these threshold times when we need to examine our life and relook at it, retool it, and be in partnership to a natural growth to the next stage. The absence of that and the guidance through that has had a very deleterious effect. And this is what we see in having what they call boys in suits, men that don't show up, and they look great, sound great, yet the effect is, we can go on and on and on. But I think you're taking the point of what's happening to erode the actual sacred strength that's the contribution piece of the male, so he feels competent, he feels now that he's not needed so much, but he's wanted. Men aren't as needed in the same way, but men need to be wanted. And so men to know what is their intrinsic value these days if they're not the breadwinner anymore, if they're not hunting for the food, and there's a lot of displacement in men's psyche. The absence of father leaves a hole in the man's heart that fills with demons, a distrust of older men. Yeah. Right? It's true, is it not? Is this ringing true with everybody here?
We've seen it, happen over the last 20 years or 30 years.
How is this now impacting the lives of the relationships with women amongst ourselves? Have you done any research, or your organization done any research with this at all, as far as the men who are left longing and wanting these relationships with other men? How is that impacting women?
So we'll just say in partnership, because there can be in partnership with women, with daughters, with families, all together. We're not a study group necessarily. We've taken studies and we look at the trends and what goes on in the inner structures of a man so that he is emotionally available and integrity and holding himself accountable to his actions, his inactions, and his shadow behaviors, what he's running away from, what he's running towards, so that he can take responsibility for his life and for those he has charge of. Now, that includes his relationships. So if he's subverting his relationships, that's typically tied to his own personal development as a man, to either hold his boundaries or to create the commitments or to become the leader he's asked. This is a reflection of him not having the inner structures that are actually can house that energy and do the right thing. So absent of that, you see the men fold up their tents. Without the structure that many women have with this intergenerational support system, I think men hang their hats on two arenas. One is their work. The other is a couple primary relationships. And if either of those things are shaken, the man is falling apart. Women have a little more structure to go around, and I think all these things kind of set up the psyche of the man to play, I'll put it this way, to maybe play a little more game playing, a little more faking it, a little more denial, a little more hoping that it'll pass by rather than taking action in the world. And this passivity or this over-aggression towards these things are very destructive in relationships, and that's due to the structure of the inner man. He's not capable of holding down a powerful relationship with a powerful woman and raising a couple of children. There's some very serious psychic things going on with that man that he can't hold that space.
And
be a contributor.
What you do your weekly groups or your monthly, when you're at your man kind project? Is that what you're doing, teaching men how to be intergenerational, interpersonal, to go within and to have integrity within themselves?
What we do at the Mankind Project is a number of things. One is we provide a powerful weekend for men to take, I call it the dumpster of their life, and turn it over. That's all the stuff that they've been hiding, repressing, and denying about themselves. And buried in that dumpster is also a lot of their compassion, their love, their passion for life, their commitment, their excitement, and their integrity.
Emotions.
You're right, and their emotions, of course, get packed away with that. And so we invite men, only men, to come to these weekends to unpack that. And as they unpack it, 3 piles are created. One that says, this is the boys that make excuses, that has to go. Here is the man that takes responsibility, that man has to grow. And every day I have a pile of work that'll trip me up, that if I'm not with other good men that'll point this out and help me, I will fall back into my own patterns. And we look to establish that benchmark for men, not to tell them how to be men, to grow them as men from their inner structures. And yes, intergenerational part of our community, because we can't replace grandfather, father, and brother, we can certainly hold that energy. We have elders. We have great warriors. We have elder statesmen. We have middle-aged men, all walks of life, all persuasions, all doing their work. This is the tribe that there used to be, but we don't drive it into the man. We ask to grow that and dig the deep well with the man as he discovers it, his own mission, vision for his life, and support that and what trips him up as he tries to enact that in himself and in his world.
You're planting the seed for them.
And creating the environment.
Right.
And make it safe. And make it safe for him to out himself without being shamed and judged harshly, but not buying into the stories either.
Have you gotten much feedback from the men who've come and participated? I don't know how we were connected a while ago, but I was completely fascinated and in awe of the video that I saw of the men's testimonials. And so do you have feedback from them after they've gone back, and are they able to incorporate this new feel, this new thinking, this new way of being into their everyday lives so that they can now hold themselves
we do provide the ongoing services for men. There's an aftercare program that says, how do you integrate this into your life? And let's teach you how to run a great men's group. And then there's men's groups. There's 700 men's groups now. We have 10,000 men a week meeting in groups. We have 43 centers. We're on 7 continents. This is working around the world for men, yet the men have to actively participate. We keep challenging the men to out themselves, to don't hide from these shadowy pieces of themselves, and also to celebrate their wonderfulness, to celebrate their gold, to get out of the little cage. It takes great courage. To stay out takes support. And to grow in that new arena takes a village. So we look to create these wonderful weekends, follow-up courses, and men's groups to be in support of the man's new vision and mission, and to deal with those things that have tripped him up in the past. So someday he'll actually maybe see it coming and avert it, rather than being a victim to it and acting out on it. They'll
have the tools. They'll have a tool bag.
I have the tools and the support and the men and the organization that says, what's going on? Out with it. Build that courage muscle. So you have to take off the shame piece and the judgment piece, but also the piece that doesn't buy into the story anymore. Men can do this for men, and this is the role that's been missing. To go back to the beginning, this has been missing for men for a long time, and they need it. They need it.
Wow. Are there any other places, like in communities? I want to ask this question, but I have an answer that's kind of tapped me on the back of the head. And I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I'm thinking, well, do men get this kind of nourishment and growing in church or in their religious, their spiritual walk when they go? I want to say yes, but then I think no.
Well, I think there's things that hold parts of this that are helpful, no question. If a man doesn't have in my estimation, this is just me speaking, because we don't take a position on anybody's God or religion or persuasion. We don't ask them to proselytize. We don't ask them to abandon it. either with their sexual preference. So we try to accept the men as they are. But I, as Glenn, the man says, if you're not connected to something greater to yourself, then you can either think you're a slave of God or you are God. And this is not healthy in a man's psyche. I believe he needs to be in service to something greater than himself so that it's not about him. He does it for the sake of his family, for the sake of his church, for the sake of his eternal soul, that he has that connection, so he's in service to these things, and his powers are used for that purpose, and it keeps it from getting tainted and self-serving and destructive. That's me, and I ask if any man has that, to try to answer your question. If he has a connection with a deep religious belief, I think many of the religious beliefs have within it a good sense of right and wrong, of justice, right, of deferred gratification. These things are important. Is there true mentoring leadership in the quadrant of a man's psyche and soul? I'm not so sure. This was being shoulder to shoulder with men of intergenerational wisdom and energy that this younger men could absorb over time, and I don't see a good substitute for that. It's gone, and now we're dealing with the effect of that. Now, also, martial arts have shown really to be quite a good discipline for men because it does something with the warrior energy, and the sensei, he knows how to direct them, right, to use this as a defense. He's a powerful man in defense. He's not a killer. He's a samurai, right? There's a distinction.
Right.
A samurai holds the border and does the mission. He's not a killer. Honor. Right. It's an honor place, right? And he's strong enough and discerning enough to know the difference. And he's serving something greater.
Respect and honor.
You want to use male power for a good thing. That's it.
Well, this is a wonderful conversation, and women and girls around the world, and all the marvelous men who are listening today, you're listening to the Chloe Show, and we're always working on being Right Now Radio. We are hosted by Survivor Radio Network, and if you have a question or a comment or you'd like to share your viewpoints, today is a great day. You can call in at 347-989-8385, and now we're talking to our guest, Glenn Barker, who is the Executive Director of the Mankind Project in Chicago, and they're your Mankind Project. Are they all over the United States?
Yes, we have 43 centers scattered throughout the United States and Europe and France and New Zealand. So we're on 7 continents, speaking 7 languages now. So if anybody wants to go to pt.5, you'll see all of our centers. Make yourselves available. We're open to any man, any walk of life, any financial situation. We have a great volunteer and fundraising source for men. If a man wants to do his work, he can come.
Do you find that some men show up and they don't want to do the work that is required over the weekend or the week that you're working?
Occasionally, but there's quite a vetting process. And that is, there's a number of pre-weekend interviews and circles we ask the men to attend to, and we do ferret this out. We do turn men away. If that man's not willing to own this piece, and there will be fear and excitement with any threshold. That we know, and that we ask to have them understand those feelings. Yet, if he's not willing to challenge himself on this level, we ask him not to come.
I want all the men whom I love, I want them to go to the Mankind Project for a weekend or a week long, or how about sometimes we may need to go away for a month to get what we need. There's been
get on, there you go.
I love it. I think now more of the men need men. We need men. Men need men right now because women aren't going anywhere, but they need men. I know for my husband and my sons, I want them to have men, not just their father, not just their uncle, but men.
Yes.
Just as Mankind, the Mankind Project. I want that for all the men that I love.
Yes, thank you.
Am I going overboard with wanting them to have that, Glenn?
I think what you're speaking more to is that energetic, having that component in a man's life. I find for myself that growing up, I didn't have these deep connections. I was fearful of powerful men, and now I am a powerful man because I've learned that energy doesn't have to be destructive. I can do good in the world. Mm-hmm. I would not be without my men's group, because what I can resolve, what the resource I have now, that I had to learn I can have with men, is a contributor now. I do not burden my personal relationships and interpersonal relationships with all of my junk. Mm-hmm. I've got a place where I can work out my isms and my angst and my anger and get it sorted out, so when I come to relationship, I'm a contributor. In fact, I can carry some of the burden for others because I've worked my things through, and I have a resource of dumping somewhere else and getting my strength, so I'm now a contributor, not a taker in relationship. This I do wish for all of us. I wish this for all of us.
Yeah.
Women and men alike.
Definitely.
Now, my goal for wanting to interact with you today on this show is so that we can get a better understanding of what's going on with men. And, my being so impressed with the testimonials of all the men that went to one of the weekends for the Mankind Project, I wanted to know how that was impacting the relationships of women in our own interpersonal relationships. So I see more now how that we are impacted, but also there's work that we all have to do. We have to do work together as women, and then we also have to do work together as men and women, because we're not separate. So, Glenn, do you suggest that we all go off in our little packs of women, intergenerational women, the leaders and the warriors and the elders, and then the men go to their groups, and then we come back and interact?
I absolutely do. I think when I see powerful women that have come into their own, we spoke earlier on this, right? You see women coming into her late 40s and 50s, coming into her power, right? And then a man who now is discovering his feelings for the first time. He's getting softer. And to not understand that these are natural progressions and not having a support system outside of the relationship. Our primary relationships are burdened, I believe, with so much of our lineage, our baggage, and to ask that relationship to house that and go forward is insane.
Mm-hmm. So we need to repair the what has happened in the past with retreats like you're doing and with the ones that my mom has done and has gone to. I think it would help change everyone.
We just did 2 weekends with the city of Chicago to work with inner city young men and mentors that mentor these young men. And yes, the effect is wonderful. And yet, if it's not consistent, it's a dream lost.
Right.
And this is up to us. Our society fragmented to the point where this is not coming back. This is up to us. No one's coming to save us. There's no big brother, father figure, mother figure that can piece this back together. This is Chloe's show and Glenn Barker and those that have the same kind of heart and love for community, family, and cherish relationship and cherish the other gender for the gifts that they bring, for the contribution they bring, that want to do this to heal ourselves. And that's what I call out to. And we want to heal ourselves. Here's a path. It's not the path. It's a path. It works. It works for a vast majority of men. If you're called to do it, do it. If you're not, I wish you well on your journey. I wish you well on your journey, because it's a tough road for all of us.
How would young men and older men find out more about participating in one of your retreats?
There is a website for the entire organization called mkp.org. mkp.org. It gives you access to all of our centers. I'll also give the Chicago Center phone number, if that's all right. I am Glenn Barker, the Center Executive Director for Mankind Project Chicago. That phone number is 312-243-6743. 312-243-6743. And say, like tomorrow night at our center here on Fulton Street, there's an open circle for men. Any man can walk in, spend a couple hours with me and a couple other weekend leaders, and get a taste for what we talked about today experientially. And say, if this is what you're called to do, if this talks to your heart, come with us. We'll help you make it happen.
Is this also, would you happen to have a chapter or a center in Atlanta, Georgia, where we are, where I am, Davis in California, in Northern California?
Yes, there is. There's North Cal. There's a San Diego. There is a Atlanta. Yes, please. mkp.org is the place to go. And our communities. There's a communities tab, and lists all of our communities worldwide. And if someone needs personal assistance, call me directly. I will help place whomever anywhere in the world. If it's available for them to be a part of a Mankind group or a weekend or somehow connected to this work.
We have a great show. We've been talking about intergenerational relationships amongst women, and we've also been talking about the dynamics of men and intergenerational relationships and how this is impacting the lives of women, all of us really, because at the end of the day, we're all connected and we do all need each other. And, Glenn, this has been a wonderful conversation. I didn't mean to take all of your time, but the conversation just got so intriguing and it was so informative that we went over just a little bit. And I would like for you to, for all of us to give you a proper thank you and a round of applause for sharing your time with us and your insight and your wisdom with us today about men and intergenerational relationships amongst men. So thank you so very much for that.
Well, bless you, Chloe, Jade, and all the great women of the show and the listeners for having the open heart, mind, and compassion to take this in. And as you say, we are all into this together and glad to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, and we'll be talking with you soon. Goodbye for now. Bye-bye. Until next time, I'm Chloe Taylor Brown.
And I'm Jade Sherrill from the West Coast.
And we'll see you next time. Goodbye for now. Women and girls around the world, you've been listening to The Chloe Show with Chloe Taylor Brown and Jade Sherrill, and we want you to be brave and bold in your dreams. Believe that you are excellent. Know that you are intelligent, savvy, and beautiful. Believe in yourself and your world. Take the first step. And until next time, you can always connect with us at ChloeTaylorBrown.com. We'll see you next Wednesday from 2 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on The Chloe Show. Goodbye for now.